So once you have your trees in the ground, if you're planting with tube stock, the next important step is to put a guard around it. And these guards will provide, I like to think of it like a little humidity crib for your baby trees, to take really good care of them, keep them warm and moist in those first few months of their lives. They also protect from rabbits, and if you choose certain types of tree guards, they'll protect them from kangaroos as well. So the milk carton tree guards are really good because they're cheap and biodegradable. They're really quick and easy to install, so they can be really good with those big, large biodiversity corridors. But they don't offer much protection. They're very small, so they don't offer much protection from rabbits or wallabies or kangaroos if you've got them. The next step up is the plastic sleeves, and once again they're cheap and relatively quick to install with just a few bamboo stakes. However, they tend to get blown around in the wind. They're plastic, so they don't degrade, and you must go back to the paddock and collect them, and that can be a big job if you're planting lots of trees. There's also plastic core flute tree guards, which might be knee-high, and these are a bit more expensive, but they create a better rabbit barrier and a good sort of micro habitat for new trees. And these can be collected and reused, so even though they're more expensive in the first place, you can reuse them 2 or 3 or 4 times, so they might be worth the money in the long run. The other one we have is the tall wire guards. So you can use chicken wire or weld mesh to build a cage around your trees. And these are really good for the individual paddock trees if you've got maybe 50 or 100. They're a bit more labour intensive, so you have to build those wire mesh guards. And obviously they're a bit more expensive, but if you have livestock or kangaroos or wallabies, then they're going to offer the best protection. I've also been experimenting with tall core flute tree guards. They're about waist high, and again these are good for paddock trees and offer you that protection from livestock and kangaroos.
Watering trees is a regular query that we get. It's not absolutely essential. If conditions are good, your native trees should grow. If you're planting into dry conditions, definitely the most effective water that you will do is at the time of planting, just so those roots get a chance to branch out into some nice moist soil. Obviously, like a garden, if you do run into an extremely dry summer and you have the labour and time available to you, any watering's good watering. Typically, if as Asha mentioned, you've planted paddock trees out by themselves and you've invested the time and money into getting them started, they would be the ones that I would water first to give them their best chance. On a full landscape scale project where you've got several thousand trees, watering does become an issue, but if you've got the opportunity, it's well worth it in dry conditions. Weed control is another one that's often overlooked. Especially in heavier country in the area, phalaris is a big issue in tree projects. It's a little talked about, but one trick we've worked out over the years is a low rate of old-fashioned glyphosate, being 1 litre to the hectare of 450 strength glyphosate, sprayed over the top of the trees will do a slow job on the phalaris and clean it up, and it won't affect the trees. So where phalaris is really giving you trouble with competition, I'd strongly recommend that one. Failing that, the other obvious alternative is with a backpack and spot spraying individually around each tree, but once again it's a very labour intensive way of doing it. Initial weed control is the key. Ultimately, preparation is the key to success for these projects.
And I think the last message about your tree planting project is don't expect every single tree to survive. We really hope for an 80% survival rate. 80% is pretty good. But sometimes you might only get a 50% survival rate, and that's not ideal, but it does happen. It does happen occasionally. So if you're planting 1,400 trees, you can expect 1,100 to survive. And that's okay, that's perfectly okay. It'll sort of even out in the long run. Maybe you can go back in a year or two and fill in those little gaps. And it's quite normal. So don't expect a 100% success. 80% is a pretty good success rate.
Absolutely. If you want a tree every 3 metres, plant one every 2.5 metres and you'll be somewhere near the mark on average.
Yeah, sounds good.